Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's very exciting times here. Growing up, I read a quote which said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Uh, but I would say with GCCs, probably that is something that could change. I was talking to one of my colleagues that, in the past, if you had your headquarters in Boston, you would access different set of capabilities versus if you have your headquarters in Japan. But now with GCCs, it could be a level playing field. Everyone could get access to the same talent. Everyone could have the same force multiplier. And to talk about these experiences, today we have an excellent panel. We have people who are users of the GCCs, who are believers in GCCs, and people who have built GCCs. So welcome everyone. I'll start with the first question for Gail. Gail, you would be like a strong user of the Novartis GCC, which has been around for a while. In your role, how do you leverage a GCC, which is sitting all across the world in India, to improve customer experience and patient experience for patients sitting in the US? How has that worked for you over the years?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking and for having me here. I'm really excited to be here on the 25th anniversary of the Novartis GCC. We have over 9,000 colleagues here in Hyderabad, and I lead the commercial marketing organization in the U.S. and I am a collaborator with our GCCs. So we really see our relationship with the GCC as one united team. Specifically, I lead the marketing function, and we're building modern marketing capabilities rooted in behavior science and the science of behavior change. And in order to do that, we need to integrate across a number of different touch points. We all know the world has gotten more complicated. Those are physical, digital. They might be a congress. They might be an in-person conversation with a physician or a digital touch point. And now with a large language model with AEO and search. So in order to be successful, we've really had to integrate that stack, those tools, and how we all interoperate. So we work very closely with our GCC colleagues and are building some of those capabilities here exclusively in Hyderabad for use across the entire marketing organization in the US.
Right. In fact, I'll come next to you, Sanjay. Sanjay, unlike Novartis, Takeda's journey in terms of a GCC has been relatively recent, probably a couple of years now. What has the India GCC created in terms of impact for Takeda in this 2 years? Is it still building up, or has it already started moving the needle, started generating outcomes for you?
Yeah, Purav, thanks for the opportunity to be on the panel. Like as you mentioned, our journey in Takeda for our Innovation Capability Center, which is in Bengaluru, started just under 2 years ago. And the India ICC, as we call it, Innovation Capability Center, is part of our global network of ICCs. So we have one in Mexico City, we have in Slovakia, we have in China, Japan, smaller centers, and then India is our flagship center. And although the journey started a bit late, but we have scaled rapidly, and we are now close to what we were anticipating in terms of our a number of colleagues who would be part of our organization by March this year. And in the recent, I'd say, few months, we are seeing a higher degree of impact from the colleagues because these were all net new colleagues who were brought into the organization. So one, they brought a lot of deep domain knowledge around technical skills, technology, data science, etc. But to bring them up to speed on the domain knowledge of the pharma industry, life sciences, working in a GXP kind of environment in a highly regulated industry, it required them to be more familiar with those kind of control environments before they could start creating value. And now we're seeing teams that are working in pods, either in India or across the 5 network ICCs, building solutions, end-to-end solutions that are supporting R&D in terms of improving the throughput of our molecule discovery. We're seeing similar to what Gail mentioned. We also have our colleagues that are working on supporting our medical reps with building solutions that are helping them with the next best action as and when they engage with healthcare professionals. We have teams that are working on AI solutions that are helping our finance organization in helping improve their the throughput in transactional processing. So to me, AI is like pretty much pervasive across the entire value chain, from R&D, manufacturing, quality, to our commercial organization, as well as all of the support functions. And I think the hunger and the appetite from the organization to really do more and contribute more, and also with the strong purpose that we have of delivering lives transforming treatments to patients, really kind of builds the connection. So we're really seeing the high output now than what we saw in the early days.
Just one follow-up question, Sanjay. You've been in pharma world for a long time. Uh, in context of how things changed in the past, is this transformation considered fast, at par, slow? How would you characterize it?
I mean, I've been in the GCC space for almost 17 years now across multiple industries, but a large part in the pharma sector. I would say in the last 2 years, the pace and the speed and the velocity of what we are seeing is not what I saw in the past. So this is really at pace, and the scale of the organization that we set up is also something that I haven't seen. And when we started our journey in India, like I didn't imagine that we could hit the numbers that we were looking for in terms of building the scale and the demand that was coming from the business, but it's happened. So I think it's a whole different environment now than what we had several years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. Syed, very similar background. Like you've also been building GCCs for what, 15, 20 years now. You announced the India R&D Center for Olympus a couple of years ago in Hyderabad. What's your experience been? How have you seen this space evolve? How would you characterize the evolution?
Thank you. Thank you, Purav, for having me here. Clearly, we have seen in the last 15, 20 years the evolution of GCCs, right? From being a cost arbitrage, cost efficiency play, capability enhancement, to moving to what I call the true innovation hub. And for us at Olympus, which has a history of more than 100 years of innovative technologies, with majority of the R&Ds in Japan and in US and Europe, India offered that unique play. When we started out our journey, it was not just as a cost efficiency. We wanted it to be part of an innovation ecosystem. And that is what we see today, is not just capabilities for arbitrage tasks, but more importantly, how can we add value with all the ecosystem that we have here in Hyderabad, but also in India with the digital AI and so on and so forth. So I think this is a huge shift from 20 years ago to where we are today.
And how would you characterize the last couple of years in terms of your journey in Hyderabad as Olympus?
Yeah. So we are expanding. Initially, it started out as our as an offshore development center, right? But now clearly into a captive GCC with our own associates here in Hyderabad. The evolution has been, again, not just in R&D to bring efficiency, but also partnering with local healthcare systems, right? We have one of the largest gastroenterology hospitals here in Hyderabad and elsewhere, but driving true clinical innovation, partnering with the physicians here. I think that's one piece of it. But also leveraging the ecosystem here for manufacturing, for supply chain, just like Sanjay mentioned. We have a lot of regulatory folks who are supporting from here, from Hyderabad. So I think it's across the system, end to end. There's a partnership that I see happening here.
Yeah, glad to hear. Badhri, you and I have been chatting about this, right? Like I was there coincidentally when the Novartis Center got inaugurated in Hyderabad. Uh, it seems almost like yesterday and yet ages ago how much the ecosystem has evolved. You have lived through that journey, not just in terms of the GCC in Hyderabad for Novartis, but also you would interact with many of these centers across the world. Uh, how would you characterize the ecosystem in Hyderabad? How would you compare it and contrast it to what you see across the world?
Well, that's first of all, thanks for having me here. Such a delight and a pleasure to be part of this panel, Purav. It's such a wide-ranging question. So first of all, I've got to say now, I'm not part of Novartis now. So this is my past life I'm going to be talking about, and I'm now in Unilabs. But to your question, I think if I had to put one thing, or my finger on one thing, it's simply the quality of people and the passion of people. I think that's the one thing that has made the difference. Why do GCCs in India succeed so much differently and far out than perhaps GCC anywhere else in the world, at least in my experience? And I'll give you a simple example. When I go around the world and I talk to people, we have town halls and stuff like that. I get questions. The questions are typically, how long is my job going to last, or how's the company doing, etc. Then I come to India and I have town halls in India, and the questions I get are, what are we doing for patients? How are we improving access? How are we making medicines available to the people who need it the most? You see, the quality of interaction, the mindset, the passion, the purpose is completely different. And I think that simply has made the difference. There's just a hunger and a fight to want to say, we are the best. And you have to come here. And I think that is what has transformed this GCC from a, if you will, a task support to a task ownership to now actually full end-to-end ownership and intelligence. And so we've moved from augmentation, I think, clearly to an ownership era now.
Oh, that's a great example. Like times have definitely changed, and it's happened very fast. Speaking of fast, Anton, I'm fascinated. Every company talks about AI. Merck has gone really far to demonstrate the commitment, have chief AI officer role, which really demonstrates the commitment to enterprise-wide transformation. Can you talk us through like what's happening in the AI world, like some of the recent trends, and how do you use that to drive an enterprise-wide transformation at Merck in a responsible, sustainable manner?
Yeah, great.
And it's a loaded question. I think I asked too many things, but I trust you will walk us through that.
It's all good. Yeah, and again, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this panel. So I think we're seeing more and more organizations identifying the need to put a focus on AI, and this chief AI officer role, again, is MSD's commitment to the importance of this technology. And so we're tackling it in a couple of ways. So there's a need to get broad awareness and adoption and understanding of this new technology. And so we've been very intentional about creating internal systems that are secure and safe and are boxed to our environment, but allow everybody in the company to experiment with the technology and learn about it and embrace it. And the ultimate goal of that is to allow people to replace the mundane work with AI capabilities. I mean, we've all seen how powerful these technologies can be. And so the ability to drive a broad awareness and adoption is kind of the start point. It's a foundational thing for us. But we fundamentally believe in the transformative ability or capabilities of AI across our value chain. So I talked a bit about the fact that we've been able to double the number of molecules in development. And we do that by investing in specific capabilities. We've built foundational models. We have one called Teddy, which is a biological model that allows us to improve our target identification as part of the process. That's how we get more molecules into the discovery phase. We have other models that we've built that allow us to be more targeted in lead identification through the process. We're doing a lot of work with generative AI in clinical trials to work on the documents that are required for clinical trials that allow us to compress that. Some of the timelines have gone from multiple weeks just to a couple of days in getting documentation ready. And then also using the technology to work through the massive volumes of data that come out of clinical trials. So there are opportunities for us across the board. And part of what we're making sure that we focus on is capturing the broad opportunities, but making smart choices about where we really invest in capabilities with AI in our company that can truly transform our company and compress that timeline, get medicines to our patients faster.
Interesting times and significant transformation from what pharma was considered in the past as one of the slowest industries. Over to you. I distinctly remember last year, same time at BioAsia, launched the Amgen Center. 1 year into the journey, How would you characterize this journey? Was it as expected? Was it different from what you expected? Can you walk us through this? Because it's a very short time, and yet I think the Amgen Center has scaled so much.
Well, good morning, everybody. And it's fun to be with you all. Only negative thing is I have no history of GCC. I've been around in Amgen for 23 years. This was all new for me. And, Amgen India, we call it AIN, for us is a global office, just part of the one node of the Amgen network. But the promise for us was this hypothesis that we put the best talent, which Hyderabad is full of, by the way, infuse latest technology, which in my last 1 year, it exploded thanks to AI, generative AI agent, and it's going at a phenomenal speed. Cloud came up with a little model. Next thing you know, all the software companies' stock went down. So that's the speed at which AI is exploding. And then we in Amgen, are really, really good in science. So the question was, we get these people, technology, and science together, then can we make a measurable, meaningful difference in being able to serve more patients, in being able to make a dent in the global healthcare? Well, good news, Hyderabad, I have to tell you, you got one of the best talents in the world. In our case, it's really exciting because we have big tech presence here, Microsoft, Google, Qualcomm, and then, as you know, and everybody has said since yesterday, Hyderabad probably makes 30-40% of the world's vaccines. So for us, getting both the pharma talent and the tech talent was absolutely magic. The other interesting thing we notice, why we scale AI responsibly and everything else, we are really, really moving from POC phase to what I call ROI. We're scaling fast solutions at a very, very fast speed, and boy, is it exciting.
So, can you tell us some areas where it has created a real impact in terms of ROI for Amgen?
Well, I can give you all my secrets, but there are a lot of functional improvements going on. Every function, as you all probably experience, are doing AI. They're making incremental improvements. But the real magic is looking at end-to-end and making transformative benefits. We've been a year. The functional benefits we can see, it's now what are the big enterprise end-to-end process we want to do, and what big enterprise impact we can generate with India and with the larger Amgen ecosystem. That's where the fun is. So while benefits are coming, the promise is beautiful.
That said, Gail, I'll come back to you. I'm a physician, a lot of healthcare practitioners are AI skeptics. And in some sense, right, there is one big question that will AI kind of dilute the patient experience? Will we lose the human touch in healthcare? But in your case, how is AI creating a meaningful impact in terms of patient experience? What has been your experience so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the areas we've been very focused on is on information discovery and AI search. And the reason is, particularly in the US healthcare market, patients have become more empowered to search out their own treatments and have discussions with doctors and bring things. The healthcare system in the US is very complicated, and patients need to be their own advocates. We also, at the same time, want to make sure that the information that we're sharing with patients is related to the information we're sharing with physicians so that there's a healthy dialogue. to bring it back to what we're doing here in Hyderabad, we're really looking at building the capability not just for AI search discovery, because it's significantly more than adding schema tags to a website. There's a lot you need to do with the content itself and really change the nature of the content. One of the capabilities we've been building in Hyderabad over the past 2 years, we've been on a journey to in-house core capabilities from our third-party vendors, because we believe we need to have closer control and ability to change at a very fast pace, and that will help us connect better with both patients and physicians. But the content engine that we're building is here in Hyderabad, and that's for use across the entire US business. And it's not a build it and throw it over the transom. It's part of the ecosystem. We're on the same MarTech stack. We're on a journey to integrate all the tools. As you can imagine, every organization was set up differently. We have different tool sets, different data sets. But as we harmonize that, and we'll be largely finished with that this year, we'll be able to see things flow through the system from not just the first touch with the patient, but back to analytics and optimization. So the vision is that end-to-end pull-through in the U.S. market, and it's critical that our teams in Hyderabad are. It's not a throw it over the transom. They're part of that journey, and with the end-to-end accountability of bringing the pieces through. Just last week, we did a big promotion and campaign around prostate cancer awareness. We had an ad at the Super Bowl. And when you advertise at the Super Bowl at scale, 138 million, there was a message to go learn more information, go to a website, use that as an entry point to find out about early detection and prostate cancer screening in the U.S. market. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. Obviously, we want to catch that earlier. And we had that set up here in Hyderabad. So we had real-time insights from what that experience was, from the broadcast through search, social insights. And we were actually available to develop content and post in real time. So all that is coming through the ecosystem here at in the GCCs, but here specifically in Hyderabad.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, right? You mentioned that the US healthcare system is complex, difficult to navigate. Sitting in India, how do you ensure that the team here not only understands the science of what you want to convey to the patients, but also the context of what you want to convey to the patient, so that the information is useful with right guardrails, etc.?
It's an excellent question. I mean, that context, it comes as being part of an integrated team. So there's trainings, learnings, we're all learning together. It's not separate. So we all get those insights, have those debriefs, understand the system. Of course, many of our associates have lived in the US, and there's a lot of movement back and forth. But it's that shared, I say everything starts with a brief. Do we have a shared understanding of what outcome we're trying to drive? And increasingly, the work we do here in Hyderabad and with all our GCCs is attached to an outcome. It's not an activity. We need to raise awareness and actually have more screenings for prostate cancer in the U.S. And what role do we play individually and as a GCC in making sure that happens?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Sanjay, coming back to you. Today morning when we were chatting, you used a very interesting word, digital fluency. And you said that is what you found as you started accessing talent in India. Can you talk about that a little more? Like, how does that digital fluency help? What kind of AI-driven innovations has it influenced for Takeda in the recent past?
Yeah, so maybe a couple areas. So one minute when I talked about digital fluency, I think it earlier in Madeline in her session on Sanofi also kind of mentioned the same thing, that like how do we educate and get the entire organization, not just portions of the organization, and make them more digital or AI literate, so they know how and where an AI or agentic solution can actually help them be more productive, more like efficient in the way they can do their work. So I think when we've looked at our talent within India or any of our ICC location, having that mindset around like AI, agentics, how it can actually help augment the way I do my work, also helps kind of create that incubator within the organization to come up with these ideas that actually helps them like, bind to this mindset of like, AI is not going to replace what I'm doing, but actually make me work smarter and not harder. And through that, so one example that we are doing within my organization is because my team's focus is primarily around building data, digital technology related solutions across the value chain. And it's like, how do we become more productive? So we've looked at one process that we have is like software development lifecycle. And we looked at end-to-end the process, saying all the personas that are involved in the process. And for each of those personas, what are the tasks that they are performing? And within that task, which tasks are right for agentification, right? And then scaling, so building those solutions and then scaling in within that persona. But just scaling within that persona doesn't kind of solve the problem or deliver the value. It's also what adjacent roles you need to create to ensure that those agents continue to perform at a level you expect them to perform, but they need to be trained. They need to be adopted. And adoption at times, like, as we've seen in the past with RPA, robotic process automation, it comes in and then people stop using it. So for this to really stick, that adoption needs to be there.
Yeah.
So you need to also create these adjacent capabilities that complement the agents you are enabling, rolling out within a function. So that's an example of how we're looking at it. Again, it's early days. We're doing step by step to make sure that we learn from each deployment across a persona set, learn from it, improve, then go to the next persona so we can get that stickiness of the value that we're trying to create.
And if I may ask, what is the degree of stickiness that you are finding so far in some of the use cases you have done?
So, if I look at within like R&D, right? So in R&D, we are looking at AI native approach. So it's not putting AI on top of an existing process, but how do we get more AI native? So from the get-go, reimagine the process with AI embedded in the right places, and obviously with human in the loop, because in the industry we operate in, making sure that the human in the loop at the end is still there to sign up, given the regulatory elements as well as GXP. But that's an area that we are applying, similar to what Gail mentioned. I think the commercial space, there's lots of opportunities, content creation being one, is how do we own that? Campaign management is another example where, again, typically, companies have used third parties to do campaign management, but now with some of the enterprise platforms we've got for CRM, we can actually run those campaign managements in a more targeted, customized manner for specific kind of target audience or segments within the healthcare profession kind of sector.
When we talk about AI, one thing which no conversation is complete without is data. So I want to come to you, Anton. 130 plus years of data, that's what you would have inherited at Merck.
Yeah.
How is AI helping you use that data better? And you mentioned you have doubled the pipeline, but what is the data that you have? It must be huge, and how do you go through it using AI in a purposeful way?
Yeah, this is actually one of the most exciting things for me about this revolution that we've seen with generative and agentic AI, is that this is an opportunity for us to convert what we believe is our data advantage into an information advantage. Part of what I was addressing earlier, we're building a semantic layer, which is essentially just a master map, a brain for our enterprise to understand where all our data is, what is the relevance of the data, so that researchers in different parts of our organization can get access to information that historically has been much harder to get access to. And the one thing that we're seeing is as these model providers give us models that have more and more context, it's easy to get lazy and just throw a whole bunch of information into the context window. But it's really important that you provide information dense context to these models for them to be really effective. So part of what we're trying to build with this semantic layer is a way for us to not only access all of that information, but serve it to our models in a way that allows them to really provide those insights.
And this is a bit of a nerd question, but historically, 10 years ago, when I started working in this space, 90% of job was data cleaning, 10% was data science or programming. Has that changed now in any manner, or it's still the same?
Well, it's definitely changed. The ability for these models to use unstructured data has shifted the focus a lot from trying to create really clean, structured data, filling in any gaps and working on things like data imbalance and still issues with challenges like bias in the data. But the work we have to do in unstructured data is different. The cleaning is a little bit different than what it looked like in the old days of focus on structured data. But also we use agents to help us get through the process of getting the data ready for other agents that are going to actually do the interpretation of it. So yeah, it is significantly changed. And again, we look at AI as a talent multiplier. So the ability of data scientists to, instead of getting bogged down in the mundane work of prepping the data for the models, they can work with agents that allow them to get through a lot more analysis.
Badhri, I want to come back to you. We were talking about AI in our previous conversation, and in some sense, we were talking that whether to use AI or not in certain use cases, is it an and or question in your mind, or do you think there's no choice and now you have to embrace AI not only at an organization level but also at an individual level? How do you see that?
The fact that AI will be used in pretty much every aspect of our life is, I think, a given. I mean, I think they all see it. I don't think anybody writes a Word document today without actually calling in a co-pilot or something like that. But exactly how you use it and the way you integrate it, especially in a large organization to deliver scalable results, I think is critical. Past solutions, I think, were seen as part of a toolbox. And AI is now seen as a teammate, not a toolbox. I think that's a pretty big difference. So if you look at it as a toolbox, then it's a set of tools you can use or not use or whatever. But if you see it as a teammate, it actually enhances your capabilities. It augments your capabilities, and perhaps it even allows you to deliver your capabilities at higher quality, more impact, more scale, etc. So that's how we see it. We see that when we deploy AI, the way you integrate it in the workflow is actually more important than sometimes the model itself. The foundation models today, we find, at least in clinical applications, are plentiful. You can get a lot of models, and a lot of people are developing a lot of models. But to maximize the impact and minimize the issues with that, the integration matters. So where is AI really good and where is humans really good? So you can't get AI, at least today, to solve edge cases. Humans are still really good at that. You can't get AI to actually have an emotional integrative response, at least today, in a clinical application. You can get humans to do it, but you can get AI to have scalable, fatigue-free performance pretty much round the year, round the clock, right? That integration, I think, means that it's an and, not an or, so to speak.
Makes sense. I go back to my pediatrician. So anyone who's young kids like you, bother your pediatricians significantly. So our pediatrician made a rule that in any particular sitting, you can ask up to 30 questions. And after that, you have to come back next day. But AI would not get tired. It would continue to answer questions. And at Unilabs, probably amongst all of us, you are the closest to patients. As you use AI, have you seen applications where you use AI to interact with patients with the right guardrails on?
Exactly. Absolutely. So we use a lot of AI in image-based diagnostics in Unilabs. And the way that we use it is both before and after a physician or a radiologist looks at it or a pathologist looks at it. And it helps us understand whether the diagnostics is complete. So when we go to the patient, there is a diagnosis that happens, but the context of the patient matters. So with the AI enabled and with the physician interacting with the patient, suddenly this becomes a lot more powerful. For example, you have a lesion on a skin. The location of the lesion matters. What the patient did yesterday before the lesion appeared and what were their lifestyle matters. AI will give us a judgment, which is a base judgment, and the clinician then uses that as a starting point for the interaction, which is much more robust than in the previous days of I'm just going to go naive or de novo and have an examination of the patient. So That's why that interaction becomes really powerful.
And that's a significant deviation from what we were used to in the past, but now it's become the new normal. Uh, Said, I want to come to you, right? Olympus is a very deep engineering organization, rich history of engineering. Uh, Now AI is taking over. How do you kind of create an AI ready organization, an AI ready workforce as you look at the future for Olympus?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's, as you rightly said, we have a rich history of innovation, but it has been for the last, 70 odd years, marrying optics and precision mechanics, right? That's where we invented the first endoscope. And Gail talked about prostate cancer. The cancers across the board are increasing, whether it's gastric, colon cancer, or esophageal cancer. And Olympus has been basically using optical diagnosis, right? Basically, these are mechanical devices. Now, imagine this, over the last 70 years, you've collected a lot of data. How can you help the clinicians use that data and precisely diagnose some of these cancers lesions, like we said earlier, much earlier than they become more potent? So I think that's one of the areas where we have been developing these clinical solutions. But going back to your question, how do we enable our workforce to use AI? I think that's a very important aspect of our thinking in the last few years. What we have been doing is significantly bringing in what you call AI native or digital native teams. In fact, we had our very first chief digital officer a couple of years ago to bring in this swarm of new digital enabled technologies and digital enabled people into our organization, right? So I think we're going away from AI as a tool to AI which is embedded in our process. So basically, reimagining our legacy with AI is what we're calling it, right? We have a very rich legacy, but how do we reimagine that with AI and with data? I think that's our process that we've enabled.
And when you say, right, like I think part of it is bringing in individuals with AI knowledge, but part of it is also kind of ensuring that your existing team, which brings in all the legacy knowledge and context, also starts becoming a user of AI. Do you see adoption challenges there? What is the degree of challenge? How do you overcome that?
Clearly, there are challenges. I'm not one to shy away from the fact that, yes, when we have 50 years of pure non-digital ecosystem, how do we transform that and bring it to this, let's just say, the digital native ecosystem? There are challenges. But I think what's unique here is that we have to, I really liked what Madeline presented this morning about how we can have these snippets. I think the word she used was snackable AI, right? That's interesting because you have these bytes which are quote unquote democratizing AI for everyday user, for everyday engineer. And you don't have to be the experts at AI. For all of us don't have to be. So that, I think that's what we are doing, is by democratizing AI and the usage, building in processes where they are embedded in the day-to-day. I'll give you one good example. In the medtech industry, developing a new product, I would argue that 40 to 50% of the time an engineer spends is in documentation and testing, right? How can we use AI to automate this process, the documentation, but the testing, the verification and validation? That's where we are deploying a lot of that activity. And another one is where we have, over years, tens of millions of videos, right, of the GI tract. That's rich data sitting in there to say, how can you utilize that to say, what's the best tech device or a best solution that can be deployed to have more effective clinical solution? I think there are various aspects to this, but I think that's the key. The key is, how do we bring in snackable AI for everyday user, but also super specialized AI for the clinicians?
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think, like you said, it also starts with that question in mind. If every day, if all your team members ask that question themselves, the answer is in front of them and they will find it. I want to come to you, Som. Som, all peers who spoke, It's very easy for them to say they are users of a capability center, but you've been a builder for the capability center. What are some of the challenges you've seen in terms of meeting these expectations as you build a capability center? In some sense, you build an ecosystem as well, right?
It's not fair to get asked the last question because all of you have great examples. And I'm supposed to top that. How is that possible? You heard yesterday, I don't know if some of you were present, our chief scientific officer had a good keynote speech saying how technology is basically changing the way we do science, right? We're not using AI as a tool. AI will fundamentally change the way we do our business. I'll give an old example. When electricity was first invented, it took 2 decades because the existing factories were running on steam and they were trying to use these electricity machines in the middle of their assembly lines. It didn't work. For them, there was no cost time benefit. However, when the entire factories got rewired with electricity, that's when the real impact of electricity happened. Now, I'm not saying AI is going to do a 2 decade journey. I don't think we have that. But it's going to rewire the way we do business. And, corporations, look, your Sanofi, I'm sure every one of us are doing it both ways. You take some big end-to-end areas process from the corporate and they work on it, but it's a ground-up operation because you cannot democratize. You cannot have every employee become an owner of your company if they don't get to play with the latest tools and technologies in their day-to-day work. So it's simple. First thing is process. You have to reimagine the process with the latest technology. Second, like you said, was data. You were talking about semantic layer, but it's getting the data in a place where it's findable, it's interoperable, it's accessible, it's repeatable. So you're not spending in like your old days, gunk on chasing data and cleaning it for one particular app. It has to be reusable across multiple models and multiple functions. And the last but not the least, at least my experience here in this last year in India, we have data scientists, we have computational biologists, we have data engineers, we have real world evidence people. They are so quick in learning the new tools and technologies that I depend more on the young kids to tell me how to think about it because I'm too old to learn as fast as they do. So I think it's democratization is happening. The question is, what is the organization going to set the right priorities to unleash the power? And I think it goes through process, data, then technology comes. So the fundamentals haven't changed, but the ability to get even data into semantic layer using multi-agents is huge. One cleans up the data, one verifies the data. And there's speed. AI is about speed. It should not be about cost. Because when you improve processes, cost is just a byproduct. So it's exciting times. And I don't know what to say. Like electricity, AI is here. It's going to change the way we do things. And there is no doubt about it.
Well, so you did top all examples, even though you went last. But I want to follow up this with one more question, Som. You are in the Hyderabad ecosystem. You see that while everyone understands the importance of AI, the value of building capability centers in India to unleash the power of that, in some sense, there is a limited talent pool. The infrastructure also needs to keep up. As an ecosystem builder or a part of the ecosystem, what do the next 2-3 years look like? What should be our priorities?
I see no problem with talent in Hyderabad. And I know this is a very common parlance of GCC Capability Center, but we're just another Amgen office. What's fun about our office is we have all functions and tech at the same place. So the collaboration between the function, the process people, the tech people are all happening here. And so it speeds up collaboration and innovation. So that is the speed and the things. But for me, what would success look like in the next 2-3 years is, a fascinating question. We were talking about a year or two ago that this is the hinge moment when technology and biology are coming together to accelerate innovation. Now we forget the hinge moment. We're in the area of, exponentiality. You can hear about, convergence of information, convergence of innovation. Everything is speeding up. Obviously, old people like me have a hard time changing the way I have always trained to do work. I still have a pen and a piece of paper to think. So the society, the old ways of doing work, there's a little change management function here to see how we can adopt and socially, culturally embed it that everybody gets there. That's a journey. It's not going to happen too quickly. But success for me is Amgen India, in, along with its companies, maybe AI plus human accelerates innovation, accelerates, makes new discoveries, finds new insights. At the end of the day, to make a difference in people's lives, and at the end of the day, to make a dent in the way we all collectively serve, human beings. So that's the test. In the next 2, 3 years, can we make a dent at an enterprise level, at a global health level? Now that would be awesome.
And there are many questions I have in my mind, but I think I got the sign.
Yeah, it says sign 3 minutes and 55 seconds.
But before we conclude this discussion, right, I want to go back to each of you and say, like, if you have to, and today, like in the morning, Madeline said, right, patients are waiting and we have to move fast. That is the purpose why all of us are here. In this era, if there is one thing that you are most excited about, what would that be? If all of you can mention it one by one as a concluding thought, that would be wonderful.
For me, it's access, expanded access. These tools allow not just us to bring more to market, but allow more patients to experience our services and our products, and hopefully lead healthier lives. So for me, it's access.
For me, it'll be how do we leverage technology that's available, be it AI or machine learning or whatever, and leverage that to bring life-transforming treatments to patients or people that need it the most. How can we kind of reduce the cycle time, especially in our industry?
Yeah, to me, it's similar to what Sanjay said. It's how can we expedite the time to market and bring these solutions again to the patients and have a bigger impact, right? Access to care, especially across the world globally, where we can bring this sustainable solutions, but faster. And so that to me is the key for these technologies.
So the way I look at it is the only difference that matters is it pay a difference to the patients. At the end of the day, all of this is meaningless. It makes no difference. So AI plus humans is way more powerful than AI or humans. So how we put AI plus humans together to increase the impact for the patients.
So yeah, I'll echo what everybody has said, right? This is about the patients. Speed is important. But for me, what I'm really excited about is the potential for these models and the underlying technologies for us to really expand the targets that we go after and bring more cures to more diseases.
Okay. I only have speed. Speed to serve more patients, speed to innovate faster, speed to get data accessible faster, speed to insights. I think it's all about speed. And technology is going at an exponential speed. Can we, large organizations and society, embrace them at this speed technology is taking place? But I think next decade is going to be exciting, but I guarantee we'll serve more patients and find more medicines. So, it's wonderful to be in this ecosystem at this time with such a huge technological revolution taking place.
Well, that's so true. Like, I think speed, the ability to get to patients, and for most of us, what we thought we might not be able to achieve in our lifetime now is possible and right in front of us. So, with that, I'd like to thank Gail, all of you gentlemen, for sharing your insights, being here, taking your time, thank you, BioAsia team, for such a wonderful platform. We'll conclude with that. Thank you.